Hello dear students, welcome to our new lecture within the Introduction to Marketing Communication course. Let's start lecture 9. Starting with the question, who are the key players in marketing? Actually, there are 4 categories: marketers, suppliers and vendors, distributors and retailers, and finally marketing partners. Marketers, usually they are the brand owners or the advertising agencies or the marketing agencies working for them. Suppliers and vendors, they do supply the owners, the marketers, with the or the manufacturers with the raw material, ingredients, component parts for the brands, the products. Distributors and retailers, they facilitate the path of the products from manufacturers to consumers. They are partners in the marketing communication, or as we call it, the market. Marketing partners, establishing a marketing cooperative and alliances program between 2 companies. Like usually we have the Ariel with Comfort, We and Pringles, Shepsi and Pepsi, and so on. So we understand now who are the key players in marketing. A market is not only a place, it's a type of buyer. A market can include consumer market, business to business market, institutional market, channel market, resellers, and so on. The consumer market, buying for personal usage all types of goods and services, including fast moving consumer goods, or we call it as an abbreviation FMCGs. The consumer market marks the biggest or the majority of the marketing activities being directed to it. Consumer market is the focus of many marketing activities. On the other side, we have other types of market, such as business to business market. You remember when we had types of ads and we had the business to business advertisements? This is a type of market also, business to business market. Then the institutional, non-profit organizations, also hospitals, government agencies, universities. This could be a market, a separate market also, which we can direct marketing activities to it. We have the channels, the resellers, the intermediaries. Usually we call it the distribution channels through which we can move the product from the manufacturer to the consumer. Another question: why is services marketing important? Simply because services are the dominant part of the economy in most developed countries. For example, the telecommunication sector in the United States of America. It's a service sector. It's a very, very, very important sector which combines many brands, service brands, and also the majority of the campaigns are being used to promote these telecommunication brands are very important in weighing the marketing process in the United States of America. Many goods manufacturers also offer services such as parts, repair, and financing, so services marketing are very important. Most companies have a customer service operation to provide, which we call it a follow-up services. So services marketing is as important as product marketing. Differences and difficulties in marketing service than goods. The first difference we can notice is goods are tangible. It's easy to be demonstrated in advertisements, while services aren't. You can easily describe a hair product, skin product, food, beverages, but usually it's difficult to describe the feeling of happiness, the feeling of love, the feeling of to be attracted to someone, to be successful. All these feelings that you must relate your service to is difficult to be described in a certain way among different types of people. The concept of happiness among elderly, among children, among females and males are different of each other. So it's easy to demonstrate the descriptions of goods and the satisfactory usage results out of it, but services are a little bit difficult to be demonstrated, and it needs a lot of work to get the exact description for the feeling or the service result that you would get out of it. Marketing services success comes through building relationship between the service provider and the customer. Of course, let's have an example. Vodafone, Orange, Etisalat, all in the Egyptian society try to establish a good and positive relationship between the brand and its customers. Usually emphasize on how achieving they are, how their customers are satisfied with the level of service they provide, and so on. Usually they emphasize on building up a relationship between them and their customers. While it's rare to have this relationship between the goods manufacturers and their customers, unless the brand or the good manufacturer is so enlightened in his marketing activities to the point that he could manage to build up a relationship between the brand, the tangible brand, and its customers. We can deliver many marketing messages while the customer is submitting to a service. Think about your last airline flight. How many contact points did you encounter in the experience? How many messages did you receive during that process? Were they all positive? Were any of it were negative? Starting from the moment you reach the airport, starting from the moment you ask about your airline desk, heading towards the luggage check-in point, and so on. Um, if it was difficult to be reached, if the employee or the one is dealing with you dealt in a negative way, if something went wrong, all these gives negative messages. And on the contrary, if everything went good, piece of cake, so you would get a positive feeling about this service. So many marketing messages could be delivered while the customer is submitting to a service. Another question: what is the marketing mix? Usually you heard me saying many times, marketing mix. We should understand carefully how to plan our marketing mix for our brand. So this is the time to determine and to find out what are elements of the marketing mix. Simply, they are what we call it the 4 P's: product, price, place, and promotion. Let's see. The product, either good, service, or idea; the price, the place, and the promotion, usually called the 4 P's. Let's start with the first P, the product. Key elements of any product are design, performance, and quality. For example, if you go through Puma advertisements, you will find out that they are focusing on design as a major point of differentiation from its competitors, while technical products focus on performance, like we. You remember previously, in previous lecture, we had we gadget, we game gadget marketing or advertising campaign. So they were focusing on performance, they were focusing on how to teach their target audience to play. Quality usually linked to upscale brands, like the brand for watches, Rolex, the brand for automobile, Mercedes vehicles, and so on. So product combines many aspects that we could use to market it. Marketing communication through any marketing campaign for the product is working to build awareness of a brand, explain how the new product works, explain how it differs from its competitors. This is actually what marketing communication do to promote a product. The second P would be pricing, or the price. It's based on many aspects, such as what the market will bear. Nowadays we're passing globally through a certain crisis, which is called the COVID-19 virus spread, or virus pandemic. Would the market bear any expensive products nowadays? Would target audience or customers could pay voluntarily or willingly for expensive gadgets nowadays, uh, through this economical situation, the market or the marketers should understand and study carefully what their market can bear. So the pricing is very important point in planning the marketing plan for any brand. Also, what influence the pricing is the competition itself. If my competitors are going through or applying a certain strategy of pricing, I should be aware of it. So in order to try either to overcome their strategy, their pricing strategy, or at least try to cope with it and try to not to be late of it. Pricing also has to do with what the consumer can afford or cannot afford. Also, the relative value of the product itself. For some people, obtaining a Jaguar vehicle is a matter of life and death, life or death. For others, obtaining food for their hungry children, this is the matter of life and death. So the relative value of the product is very important to determine its pricing. The consumer's ability to accept that value, whether your consumers are able to understand why you are valuing this product, your product, in that price or not. The price sends a message, whether it's cheap or expensive. Sometimes it's intended to communicate a high price with the brand image. The third P would be the place, or we can call it distribution. It includes the channels used to make the product easily accessible to customers. The distribution channel also sends a message. The internet raises new distribution questions related to clicks or bricks. What do we mean by clicks or bricks? Clicks, it's sold on the internet or sold online. Bricks, it's sold in the traditional shops, which is made of bricks. So the place strategy, the place procedures in your marketing plan is very important, also as the importance of defining your product, as the importance of determining the pricing strategy. You need also to go through factors affecting the determination of the place strategy you would use to promote your brand. Marketers may use a push strategy or a pull strategy. What's a push strategy? Usually it depends on retailers' promotions. We are pushing people to buy. We are heading towards people. We're going to talk and communicate with customers in shops, in shopping malls, to try to persuade them with many retailers' promotions that they must buy or should buy the product. So the push strategy, you are pushing your customers to buy the product through retailers' promotions. What is the pull strategy? The pull strategy, depending on the media, depending on advertisements, usually airing or putting advertisements message in front of the eyes of your target audience to create demand among them, to make them go for the brand wherever it is, by certain appeals, by executing a good and effective and creative messages that pulls their attention, and also moves them into action. The fourth, or the last of 4 P's, is promotion. We call it the marketing communication, or the Markham, the abbreviation we used to use starting from our semester, the very first beginning of our lectures or our course classes. Markham, or marketing communication. This is what we call the 4 P, or the fourth P, including advertising, public relations, sales promotion, direct response marketing, events and sponsorships, point of sale, digital media, packaging, personal sales, and more related to digital media, more related methods to digital media. This is the fourth P. Another question: how does the marketing process work? Actually, researchers determined 7 steps for the marketing process. The first step is research. You should research the consumer, the competition, the market, and then develop what we call it a SWOT analysis. SWOT is an abbreviation, letters stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You should determine the strengths of your brand, the weaknesses of your brand. Also, you should determine the opportunities in the market and the threats in the market. After setting your SWOT analysis points, you should set objectives for your marketing efforts. For example, if you found out through SWOT analysis that you're obtaining a certain strengths in your own brand, and you're obtaining a certain opportunities in the market, such as your competitor, your major competitor is declining in the market, or something happened to its marketing efforts, anything. So the opportunity in the market with the strengths you discovered in your brand leads you to set optimistic objectives for the marketing efforts. The third step would be segmenting. Segment the market and target specific markets. Usually we tend to identify a certain market and address this certain sector of the market with our marketing activities and advertising activities. So we should identify our target audience, we should segment the market and target specific markets out of it. The fourth step would be differentiate and position your brand relative to the competition. What do we mean by this? Simply, I would like to differentiate my brand among its competitors. either with a real incentive or a real privilege, or with something that's not real of my product, but it relates to the feeling my customer would get out of using my product, or any psychological aspects that I might use to differentiate my product among its competitors. When I succeed in differentiating my product among my competitors, so it's time to position my product in the minds of my target audience or consumers in a position that my competitors wouldn't reach, like applying the question for my customers, asking my customers, if you're thirsty, what would you prefer? Which brand? If you're hungry, if you're having this brand and the other brand, what would you prefer? So positioning my brand in the minds of my customers, it's a very important step through differentiating my brand among its competitors. Let my brand stand out of the competitors' market. The fifth step would be developing the marketing mix strategy, the product design, the performance, the pricing strategy, the distribution strategy, and planning, executing the marketing communication strategy or strategies and techniques. The sixth step would be executing these strategies, executing this marketing mix. Finally, after doing so, I need to evaluate my activities. I need to understand whether my activities were effective in fulfilling my objectives, in achieving my objectives or not. So these are the 7 exact steps which the researchers set for marketing process. You remember the first principle of IMC, the first principle of integrated marketing communication from chapter 1? It was everything communicates. Translated in other words, every part of the marketing mix, not just marketing communication, sends a message. Where it's sold, with what price, what are the different packages, and so on. So everything in your brand must communicate. You cannot rely only on the brand quality. If you have a very good brand quality, but still you're having a poor distribution strategy or a poor placing strategy, your target audience cannot find your brand easily in the market. So this is somehow a failure in communicating. When you try to achieve the integration in your marketing communication, you should apply the first principle, which is everything in your brand and brand activities must communicate in the positive way. The unintended messages make a difference in receiving the brand. Imagine standing a long time in a line waiting for after sale service, not answering your calls, and so on. This would end with a negative perspective of your brand or your service. So be aware of the effect of these unintended messages on your marketing efforts as a whole. As I told you before, you can assign a very successful and creative advertising agency, marketing agency. You can plan, you can put a good plan. Your marketers, your marketing team could design and execute a good plan, but at the end or through the way, you might not be thinking of certain points that would finally give unintended messages leading to a negative perspective of your brand. Those messages can be more powerful negatively than any advertisement you are planning. It could send a message that companies don't value consumers' time or effort. That's why it's necessary to monitor all marketing elements from a communication perspective. With this, we come to the end of our lecture today, waiting for your questions and inquiries through our Facebook group, and don't hesitate to contact me at any time. Thank you so much and goodbye.